Okay, class. So here's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to do an example. So we're going to go over the greatest integer function again, and I'm going to give you an example of how we would handle graphing some function that involves the greatest integer function. So here's, again, the definition. So again, the greatest integer function, f of x, given by this symbol, is what it does is it pairs every real number x with the greatest integer that is less than or equal to x. Okay, so let's say that again. So the greatest integer function pairs every real number x with the greatest integer that is less than or equal to x. Okay, so that's what it does. Okay, so let's take this example. So let's say I give you an example like this, and I say, okay, I want you to graph this function, and it's the greatest integer, right, of what? This expression inside. So what I'm going to do is, for every value of x, I'm going to evaluate the inside first, and then apply the greatest integer symbol to it, or the greatest integer function to it. Okay, so I've got a table already written out, but for example, if I put 0 in here, 0 times a half is 0, plus 1 is 1. Well, the greatest integer function of 1 is 1. Well, what if I put in a half? Well, 1 half times 1 half is a fourth, and then 1 plus a fourth is 1 and a fourth. Well, the greatest integer of 1 and a fourth is 1. Okay. Now what if I put in 1? Well, 1 times a half is a half. A half plus 1 is 1 and a half, right? But the greatest integer function says, well, the greatest integer that's less than or equal to 1 and a half is 1. So all of these values pair up with 1. Now let's go 3 and a half, right? 3 and a half times 1 half is what? 3/4. And so 1 plus 3/4 is 1 3/4, which again, the greatest integer of that brings it back down to 1. So all of these values of x get mapped to 1. Okay? Now let's go to 2. Well, if you put 2 in here, 2 times a half is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Well, the greatest integer function maps 2 to 2 because 2 is an integer. And the greatest integer less than or equal to 2 is 2. Now let's do 5 halves. Well, 5 halves times a half is 5/4 plus 1, or 4/4, is 9/4, which gives us what? 2 1/4, right? Well, 2 1/4 gets mapped down to 2. And so if you keep doing this, if you keep, again, over and over again, just evaluating the inside given the value of x, and then once you evaluate the inside, then apply the greatest integer function to that number, and then whatever it maps to, put in here. And so when you do this, what do you get? Well, let's map it. So from 0 to 2, it's going to be at 1, right? So from 0 to 2, it looks like it's going to be 1. So 0 is included. So we're going to have a filled-in circle here. And then all the way to 2, it's going to be at 1. It's going to be constant at 1 until you get to 2. And then you're going to have an open circle because this is where it's going to jump. Now, where is it going to jump to? It's going to jump to 2. So now we're going to jump to 2. So now I'm going to have another filled-in circle at 2. Now what it's going to do is it's going to stay at 2 until you get to what? Well, that's where you gotta, what do? We went from 0 to 2. At 3, it's still 2. Just like at 1, it's still 1. 3 to 2. So what's going to happen? Well, it's going to jump at 4. Because 4 times a half is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. So it's going to jump at 4. So this is going to go to 4. And see, notice now you can see a pattern. So as soon as you do a couple of these, you've got the pattern, and now you know it's going to jump to 3 here. And then it's going to go from 4 to 6. It's going to be at 3. And now you can go backwards too, because now here it's going to jump down here, and we're going to have an open circle here, and it's going to go from 0 to -2. And then it's going to jump down to -1, and it's going to go from -2 to 4, and then it's going to jump down again. And it's going to keep going like that. Okay? So as soon as you have a couple of steps drawn, you can see the pattern, and it's going to stay the same, and you can just draw it out. Okay? And that is how you handle a greatest integer function when you're asked to graph it. Okay, and that's it. Have a good day.